Good morning and namaste to all. Let's start the class with the prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhuvava Swaha Tatsavitra Varenayam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Satgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityorma Amritam Gamya Om Sehna Bhavatu Sehna Bhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi Om Shanti 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 Om. So today is Saturday, and Saturdays we go through Vivekachudamani, which is written by Adi Shankaracharya ji. And we are on verse number 245. That's where we're going to start our class today. Ath ataha adeshaha iti shruti swayam nishedhati brahmani kalpitam dvayam shruti parman anugrihit bodhat teyo nirasaha karniye eva. Ath means now. Ataha, then. Adesh is injunction. Iti, thus. Shruti is the Vedas, scriptures, primary scriptures. Swayam, themselves. Nishedhati, reject. Brahmani, in Brahm. Kalpitam, imagined. Dvayam, duality. Shruti Parman Anugrihit, supported by the authority of scriptures. Bodhat, by knowledge. Tayo, there. Nirasaha, elimination. Karniye, should be done. Ev means certainly, surely. So he's saying that now is the injunction, adesh, etc. In these words, the scriptures reject the imagined duality in Brahma. Okay? So they give the injunction very directly. They say that the Vedas, that there's no duality. Supported by the authority of the scriptures, one must certainly eliminate these two superimpositions by means of direct realization. So what he is saying that ultimately you have to experience it. First you got to believe in it, but then go through the process and experience it also. Just don't take the words alone. Experience is very important. Okay? So just like in Hindi, we say, sure, we got to mano something, like a manana. But then the janana is important too. Manana is just having a belief system. Janana, just really know it personally. Okay? And then usko pana also. Becoming one with it too. So these are the stages he's talking about. That's why he said, but it does start from the adesh though. The scriptures do give us that adesh. In Brihad Aryanak Upanishad, the Rishi starts like this. Athat adesh neti neti iti shruti. That means now then is the injunction, not this, not this. That means this is not it. Okay. So now, therefore, we are giving you the adesh, the injunction for the experience of the reality. This is also adesh over here. That you do not just stop yourself at the lower level. You have to experience this also. So Upanishads are negating the polarity. They say this is the illusion of the mind. So duality or the polarity, same thing. In deep sleep, there is no polarity perceived at all. Shruti negates polarity as unreal and says behind and beneath it is a vital, absolute reality which is to be experienced. But now, how can one get out of it? How do we wake up from the dream? The knowledge gained as a result of scriptures or scriptural information, confirmed by a person's rational, independent thinking, can definitely help us negate this polarity. So this reflection we need to do. Somebody can teach us, somebody can take us somewhere, but ultimately we have to experience it. So negating, that's what he has been talking about for the so many verses previously, negating all the five koshas, the bodies. And behind that, he says, subtler and the subtlest of all is the self, our own nature, the Jeevhood is transcended and the supreme hood is realized. So this negation we have to do. And that's what the sadhana is. Continuation of this in 246. Na idam kalpit tvat na satyam raju drisht vyalvat swapanvat cha itham drishyam sadhu yuktyaha vyapohe geya pashat ek bhava tayoya. Na idam, neither this, and nor this. Two times he says, na idam. Kalpit tvat. Being products of imagination. So like imagined. Na means not, satyam is real. Rajju, rope. Drisht, seen. Vyalvat, like the snake. Swapanvat, like the dream. Cha means and. Ithtam, thus. Drishyam, seen, the world. Sadhu. Sadhu is like a perfectly person, sadhu. Yuktya, by reasoning. Vyapohe, eliminating. Gyeya, should be realized. Paschat, thereafter. Ek bhavaha, oneness. Tayo, there. That means Jeev and the Ishwar, there, tayo. Ya means that which. Neither this nor this. What does it mean? Neither this means the gross, nor this means the subtle. Because there are some things which are grosser, some are subtle. So he says, neither gross nor subtle. Like the snake seen in the rope and like dream. So two different examples are not real. So whether it is a snake in the rope or a dream when we are sleeping, they both are not real. Being products of imagination. By a perfect elimination of the objective world, by reasoning, one must realize the oneness underlying the Jeev and the Ishwar. So the question was how to do it? This is how we can do it. We use our intellect in dissecting the outer world. We got to use the same intellect to reflect upon this reality also. So rational thinking makes it clear that what is projected or what is delusory cannot be an actual fact. That which was not in the past will not be in the future, but looking like that it is here in the present, that's what's called illusion. That's not reality. The snake and the rope example, one of them is objective and one of them is subjective. So example of the snake, that's objective. An example of the dream is a subjective one. So there's a delusion in the outer world also. Something objectively we see, but we are delusory. The same thing happens within us also in a dream, and that's inside us. But both of them, he says, they are not this, not this. But one who is a sadhu, a spiritual thinker, after having eliminated the world within and the world without, how? By yukti, the rational thinking, will realize that I who experienced the objects, emotions, and the thoughts through my layers of my personality, they are all illusions. I am the substratum. I am the pure consciousness. This is where a sadhu reaches. That's why sadhu is called perfect. 247. Tataha tu tyo lakshnaya sulakshyo tayo akhand ek ras त्वसिद्धेः न अलम जहत्यः न तथा अजहत्यः किंतु उभया अर्थ आत्मिके एव भाव्यम. There's some technical terms in this verse and I'll go through those. Tataha means therefore. Tu means verily. Tau means these, like a two terms, tau. Lakshnaya, through their implied meaning, lakshan. Sulakshyo should be carefully considered. Tayo means there, akhand, absolute, like an indivisible, akhand, which cannot be broken. Ek rastva siddhi, for establishing identity. Ek ras. No means not, alam, sufficient. Jahatyaha, the method of rejection. No means not, tatha similarly, ajhatyaha, the method of complete retention. Like a rejection. Kintu means but, ubhe arth atmikye, by a combined process of both. So that means both jahatya means and ajaha means both. Ev means alone, bhavyam should be reasoned out. Therefore, the two terms, Ishwar and Jiva, should be carefully considered through their indicative meanings in order to establish their absolute identity. Because when we say that Jiva and Ishwar, same, one and the same, we should think about it. How are we saying? Why are we saying they are the same? Neither the method of total rejection nor the method of complete retention will suffice. One must reason by a combined process of both. So that means we have to dissect it to properly understand it properly. We cannot just understand it superficially in order to realize the Brahm and the reality in Brahma and the reality in the Jiva is the same. So in other words, our intellect has to be prepared to understand it. Definitely we need a sharp intellect and we need a subtle intellect also. We got to learn how to independently think also, reflect also. And the intellect which has been prepared for this great flight, you must learn how to negate this body, the mind, the intellect. Only then you can apprehend the truth. Otherwise, we are obsessed with this body, let alone the outer objects. We really cannot dig deeper into who we are. So we have to prepare ourselves. Only then we can understand the profound Mahavakyas, which he has been talking about in these verses when he says, thou, that thou art. So he says the implied meaning has to be understood. That implied meaning has to be appreciated by that sharp and the subtle intellect which you have been preparing. So we got to understand the implied meaning of the sacred words of the great rishis. Those rishis, when they said these words, they uttered these because they saw this, the reality. They never said that we have created these words. They heard these words from the mouth of God. That's why it's called Shruti, heard. They did not write. So that's why we need to go deeper into these words, analyze, understand the secret, sacred meaning behind them. In order to experience what those rishis have experienced. Because what are they saying when they say that Tattvamasi, that thou art? There's a common denominator in you and God. What is that common denominator? That's why he is giving us these technical terms over here. Suggestive meaning of a statement is generally appreciated by three ways. There's a suggestiveness in there. It's almost like if you buy a house, it's a lakefront property, and you will tell somebody, my house is right on the lake. Does it mean it's really in the water? On the lake means, what are you suggesting? It's by the lake, it's close to the lake. It's not on the lake, but still you say it's on the lake or on the ocean. When you say giving the direction to somebody, sometimes there is some kind of a figurine on top of the house. In India, they put in Punjab, where I come from, people put the planes, little planes on the house, or a crow on the house, or a little dragon on the house. They put these things. And just to tell somebody, they might say that the house on which the crow is sitting. So they are just only indicating, they are not indicating to the crow, they are indicating to the house. That is my house. Crow is not my house, or the plane is not my house. That's how we understand. Or when people go on the race is the horse race. There could be a horse with a red color or with a number on the horse. Generally, people will say, red ran. Red came first. It's not the color red. It's the red color of the horse. Horse had the red color. So we just use these lakshana, indicative meanings. So the method of driving the implied meaning of a statement is called a lakshan in Sanskrit. Implied meaning. The first, where we leave some aspects of the direct meaning in order to understand, is called a jaha lakshan. Jaha lakshan. The second, where we add something to it, that is called a jaha lakshan. Okay, so that's why I have given you these three examples. First one is a jaha lakshan, the second one is a jaha lakshan, and the third, where we leave some aspects and add something else to it to reach to the indicative meaning, is called jaha, a jaha lakshan. So that's why he said these are the three ways. So the third method is useful in understanding the implied meaning of the Mahavakyas. Third one, when the equipments, the upadhis of both that and thou are removed. When we remove the upadhis, what is remaining? One and the same infinite reality. So when you remove the upadhis of a human being, what is the upadhi of a human being? Those 5 koshas are the upadhis. Remove those. What is left is the reality. And the intellect, why we study the scriptures? So that we can prepare our intellect to study the scriptures like this. Our thinking becomes correct. So when an individual can fully negate the identifications with the body, mind, intellect, or with all the 5 koshas, you experience the self. And that self is no different than the Brahm. Let me read that word meaning again, so that, because this is a very powerful verse where Adi Shankaracharya ji is taking our mind towards what do we really need to do. So with the help of all the sadhanas, this is where we need to go. He says the 2 terms, Ishwar and Jeev, should be carefully considered through their indicative meanings in order to establish their absolute identity. We even get lost with the meaning of God. We differentiate between the Ganesh and the Krishna, between the Hanuman and the Ram. We got to learn how to peel those layers away from those forms also. But we start fighting. This is bigger and this is better. This gives me this and this gives me that. I didn't get that from here. I'm going to go to somebody else. This great Rishi is telling us, rise above this. Therefore, the 2 terms, Ishwar and Jeev, should be carefully considered through their indicative meanings in order to establish their absolute identity. Neither the method of total rejection nor the method of complete retention will suffice. One must reason by a combined process of both. Okay, so that's why I told you that a jaha lakshan is the way to do it. Now, further, he is giving us example in number 248 and 249 together. It goes. Sa devdataha ayam iti ihcha ektaha viruddh dharmasham apase kathyate yatha tatha tat tvam asi iti vakye viruddh dharman ubhyatra hitvaha. This is 248. Sa means that. Devdat, that's the name of a person. Just like we can say, we can substitute with this Ram or Tom or anything. Devdat, he chose the Devdat name. I am this, iti, thus, ihcha, here. That means here in this sentence, ihcha, ekta, identity, viruddh, contradictory, dharmasham, portions of qualities, apasye, eliminating, kathyate is expressed, yatha means just as, tatha means so too, tat means that, tvam means you. In this particular Mahavakya, he said thou. Asi means art, iti means thus, vakya in the sentence, viruddha dharman, contradictory attributes, ubhyatra on both sides, hitva, giving up. So 249, because I want to do both of them together. Samlakshya hai chin matrateya sad atmanoh akhand bhavah परिचीयते बुद्धै एवं महावाक्य शतेन कथ्यते ब्रह्म आत्मनो एक्यम अखंड भावः. Samlakshya, that means noting. Chin matratya, as the pure consciousness, limitless consciousness. Sadatmano, the true self. That means the true self of the Jeev and the Ishwar. Akhand bhavaha, the invisible essence. That means the identity. Parichiyate is recognized. Buddhai, by wise person. Evam, in this way, Mahavakya shaten, shat means 100, by hundreds of scriptural declarations. Kathyate, revealed, expressed. Brahm Atmano, of Brahma and Atma. Ekyam, identity. Akhand bhavaha, complete oneness in essence. This is that Devdatta. Okay. So Devdato. This is that Devdat, just as in this sentence, the identity expressed is arrived at by eliminating contradictory portions. So too it is in the statement that thou art. Men of wisdom should give up contradictory elements on both sides and recognize the identity of Ishwar and Jeev, carefully noting that the essence of both is knowledge absolute. In such wise hundreds of scriptural declaration, the oneness and the identity of Brahm and the Jeev. So what he's saying is that when it is said, God, the infinite, the all-pervading, the blissful, the perfect, is you. Because we identify ourselves with the finite, we just ignore the infinite, which is God in us. So in other words, we have to remove all the imperfections around that statement. So that's why we say that we got to disidentify, at least during our meditations. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect, I am that soul, which is needs to merge one with the Brahm. That is like a removing all the imperfections, even though imperfections are there. But identification with the imperfection has to be removed during our meditations. Because the spark of consciousness, that ansh of the anshi, which is behind our thoughts, is the same consciousness that is functioning through God. See, instead of going towards this reality, we get lost into this Brahmajal. into the imperfections. I'm not good enough. What is not good enough in us? Sometimes we think it's the body. It can never be good enough. Sometimes we think I haven't earned enough. Sky is the limit when it comes to these things. We got to stop comparing ourselves with these imperfections. So the spark of consciousness that is behind the thought in you is the same consciousness that is functioning through God. So in order to make us understand, he's giving us this example. This is that Devadatta. This and that, those pronouns indicating two different things. The pronoun that indicates thing far away. That. Sitting over here, I can say that chair. That. And this indicates a thing which is relatively near. I can say this scarf. This and that. Or we can say that John is this man. So that means that John, which was in the past, I knew or I talked about, it is this man right now. So this is what he is saying. This is that Devadatta. The time and the place, they keep on changing. But the individual has remained the same. That's why he says that thou art. That you think God is somewhere, but this is who you are. There's no difference between that and this. So here we need to learn how to remove the contradictory conditionings, which is called Viruddha Dharam, and understand correctly that this individual and that individual are the same. That God and this Jeev is the same. Or when we say man is God, we don't mean that the size of the man is the size of God. Or the shape of the man is the shape of the God. Or the imperfections of a man are the imperfections of God. We only mean that in man, there's a godly essence. This is what we need to understand. So that's why it's a very powerful example he has given us, if we think it through, that Devadatta is this man. Tat tvam asi. This declaration is like that. We understand that human body, which we call man or a woman, is subject to birth. We understand that. God is unborn. Man is limited, God is unlimited. Man is perishable being, God is imperishable. Man is mortal, God is immortal. But when we remove all those qualities, peel away all those layers, what remains is the same in the man also, in the God also. Same infinite self pure consciousness. That's what we got to learn to identify with. Wise people, those rishis, they understood this essence, the one essence both in man and the God. That's where those Mahavakyas came up. Essential core in God is the essential core in man. Let's look at next one. Because verse 250, 251, 52, and 53, he is giving us what kind of attitude we should have during meditation. So 250. Asathulam iti etat asat nirasya siddham swata vyomvat apartakyam ataha mrisha matram idam pratitam jahihi yat swa atmatya grihitam brahm aham iti eva vishuddha buddhya vidhi swam atmanam akhand bodham Pretty long verse, but let's look at it word at a time. See, when we break it down, then it doesn't look that difficult. But when we look at the whole thing, it's just like almost like a frightening. Asathulam. Sathul means gross. So asthul means not gross. Asathulam. Iti means thus. Etat means this. Asat, not self. Nirasya, discarding. Siddham swata, self-established. Vyom vat. Vyom means the space. So like the space. Apartakyam, beyond the pale of thought, beyond the tark. Ataha means therefore, mrish matram, illusory. Idam means this, partitam, which is perceived. Jahihi, negate, give up. Yat means that which. Swa atmatya, as your own self. Grihitam is accepted. Brahm aham, I am a Brahm. Iti means thus, ev means alone. Vishuddha buddhya, with a purified understanding. Vidhi, realize. Swam atmanam, your own self. Akhand bodham, knowledge absolute. Akhand bodham. He says, see, I told you this is like an attitude during our meditation. Okay, most of us are not, we cannot do the active meditation all the time. But at least we got to learn how to do the passive meditation. That means sitting down and meditate. So during that time, discard the non-self. Sure, when we are working, when we are talking, when we are doing something, we cannot do that right now. A yogi can, but we are not yogis yet. We are on the path of becoming a yogi, but we are not yogis. So at least during our meditations, we should have this attitude. I am not the body, discard. I'm not the mind, discard. I'm not the intellect, discard that. So that's why I said discarding the non-self. In the light of passages such as it's not gross, etc., one realizes the self. That's how we're going to realize the self, which is a self-established. It's not that we are bringing it from somewhere. It's already there. But somehow we have not paid much attention to it. Not even much, we haven't paid any attention to it. Unattached like the sky and beyond the pale of thought. So he's talking about this Atma, which is part of Brahma, that is unattached like the sky. Vyomvat. And beyond the pale of the thought. If we think that we can think about God or the Brahma in us, we cannot. It is beyond the pale of thought. So negate this illusory body which you are perceiving and have accepted as your own self. With a purified understanding that I am Brahma, realize your own self, which is a knowledge absolute. So in all this big verse, what he is basically telling us, disidentify from the non-self and identify with the real self during meditation. That's all he's saying. Brahm is not gross, it's not a sathul. So by remembering this, eliminate the not self. Because that which is not self is gross. Because what is gross? What is thul? So thul is something which can be perceived. Just like the worldly objects can be perceived through the senses. We can see it, we can hear it, we can touch it, we can smell it, we can taste it. And the world of emotions, we can understand with the mind. And the world of thoughts, or the reasoning by the intellect. So he says, negate all of that. So when the gross has been transcended, all this gross, he's talking, all of it is as a gross. You come to apprehend the self-established Atma, which cannot be described. Because it is self-existent. Its existence is not because of something. It's a self-existent, Swayam Siddha. So all that is perceived as this, it could be the objects, it could be the emotions, it could be the thoughts. That's what he meant, idam pratitam. He says those are mere illusions. The things which don't really exist, and I have paid so much importance to those. You are holding on to those things which don't even exist. He says, leave them, renounce them. Destroy the false notion from your mind. But we all know this removal cannot be done so easily. In order to do this, what do we need? We need a Vishuddha Buddhi. Vishuddha Buddhi, pure understanding. Okay? Brahm aham iti. He says, use these Mahavakyas and try to make your understanding clear. And it should not be, this kind of an understanding should not be a passing experience. That's another thing he's telling us. When he says akhand bodham, that means it should be a constant knowledge. Sure, here and there, when we listen to somebody, some great person, when we are in the company of somebody great, we do have this passing experience, but it's only passing. It has to become our experience. Because at present, we have a constant knowledge of, I am this body. How old I am, what is my name, what others are thinking about me, what are they doing, where I'm gonna go, what I'm gonna buy, what I'm gonna say. We have that kind of a buddhi right now. The constant knowledge that I am the pure consciousness, Brahma Aham. That's what he's asking us to do. At least during meditations, 15, 20, half an hour of meditation, I am Brahma. If any other thought comes, negate it, throw it out, replace it with this reality. Replace it. We got to learn how to replace it quickly, fast enough. You will see that even during meditation, your knees won't hurt, your back won't hurt. Because the power of these declarations, power of these kind of thoughts is so much. This body is nothing. We are just obsessed about the body, and that's why we constantly think about this body is this and body is that. For 15, 20 minutes a day, half an hour a day, whatever your sadhana is, do that. We're going to stop it here because he's going to give us more help how to meditate deeply. So, as I said earlier, from 250 to 253, all these verses, 4 verses. So this is only the first one. And try to meditate like this. That's why those Mahavakyas are important to us. It's not just to memorize them, but really live your life based upon the reality which those great rishis have uttered to us. And there are 4 Mahavakyas, even though in this one we are touching upon 2, Aham Brahmasmi and Tat Tvam Asi. In our last class, there was a question, where do they come from? Tat Tvam Asi is from Samved, Chandogya Upanishad. Tat Tvam Asi. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahma, from Yajurved, Brihad Aryanak Upanishad. Pragya Nam Brahm, consciousness is Brahma, from Rig Ved, Taittiriya Upanishad. I am Atma Brahm. This self is Brahma. Mandukya Upanishad, Atharva Ved. So these are all 4 are saying basically the same thing. Whichever speaks to you, you don't have to memorize all of them. Any one of them, but ultimately you got to dig deeper, like a reject, as he said, negate the unreal and accept the real with the help of this. That's all he's saying. So let's stop our class over here, and then we will go through some discussion, if you like. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much. So if anybody has a question,